Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, and that means Friday Reads on BookTube. Starts off the round of people talking about taking stock of their week, how it went, what they read, what they are reading, what they plan on reading, whether or not it was a good week. Uh, those happen on Friday. They happen on the weekend. They happen on Monday. I had a wonderful reading week myself. Oh my God, I did almost nothing but my little dog just doesn't want uh, as much physical exercise as she has in past years. She doesn't want as much of it anymore. She's perfectly happy to just hang out here. When I'm not making videos, she is on top of me. Uh, and that has led to a lot of reading, a lot of reading that I have done. So it was a good week for reading, very, very good. And I want to show you some of the books that I read. I think there's some books on here that I haven't read yet that I'm going to get to. I don't really do much in the way of the middle category of books that I am currently reading, unless it's a 4-volume history of something, in which case that will take me enough time so that it might straddle 2 videos. But otherwise, usually not. I don't usually have books so-called on the go because I don't do anything else but read. You wouldn't either. You would just read a book from start to finish if you had nothing else to do. I think a lot of these will be things that I've already read as I engage in a feverish whirlwind of finishing up as many May books as possible before we move on to a new month. We'll do it. The first one here, this has been in the news. If you're in America, you've probably seen or heard mention of this book. This is by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, and it is Original Sin. It is their new scandal-screaming book about how the White House and the Democratic establishment and the press conspired to cover up Joe Biden's health issues. I hate these authors. I hate fascist enablers just in general. I hate any high-profile journalist who, for one, welcomes our new insect overlords. I hate them for what they did to the country and for what they could have prevented, for what they could have done if they'd been willing to risk their multi-million-dollar fat paychecks. Nevertheless, the reception of this book has been unfair in a lot of quarters because the book came out at the exact same moment when Joe Biden went public with a diagnosis of a very aggressive cancer, a cancer that he will certainly not survive. He will not live out the summer. And that has led to a whole bunch of media outlets and yelling heads on YouTube saying that Tapper and Thompson are just piling on, that it's very crass, that it's very ungentlemanlike to pile on a sick old man. Of course, when this book was being researched and when it was being written and when it was in galleys, that subject was not public knowledge. It's just random timing, that's all. That I guess is bad timing, although it's got this word in everyone's mouth, so maybe the sales have seen a perk because of it. It's important for me, anyway, as a reader, it was important for me to separate all 3 of those subjects. The timing of the book's appearance and the announcement of Biden's cancer, with the fact that I hate these 2. I hate how enabling they are. I hate how fascist-friendly they are. And also the subject of the book. The third thing is the actual subject of the book, which is indisputably true. It is indisputably true, and it has been so for a long time. A lot longer than just Joe Biden's decision to run again, a thing that he swore he would not do in his first campaign. First modern campaign. I've been covering Joe Biden forever. I've been writing about him forever. I've met him twice. And the second time, both times I was in just a gigantic room full of journalists, and the second time he remembered the first time. He was, once upon a time, an absolutely fantastic retail politician, handshake politician. But nevertheless, the Joe Biden who ran from his basement during COVID, as the Republican arch-right always said, was obviously a diminished person. I mean, there was only so much you could do to hide that. Every once in a while, on a podium in front of a microphone, he would have a good moment, but usually not. Usually not. The examples are so numerous. I mean, the one that history is going to remember is his performance in a presidential debate with Donald Trump, where I'm sure you all, there's no one watching this video that doesn't remember that performance. It was horrifying. It was horrifying. It was a clear sign of someone who is in rapid mental and physical decline. That has just been visible about Biden all along, which made, for me, his decision to run for a second term incomprehensible and irresponsible. It was obvious even when there were events about it, that he was not able to do it, that he was barely able to conduct the campaign, much less be in office another 4 years. And this book just documents. It documents, as far as we will ever know, probably, the extent to which that impossibility was known to everybody. It's flat, boring prose. It's mostly, to a disconcertingly large amount, drawn from public reporting, so that you yourself could, I think, write this book. But the only thing that's going to be remembered about it is the bad timing, that it showed up turning dirt on Biden, heaping dirt into his grave just as he announced that he has what is almost certainly a fatal cancer diagnosis. There's no way he's going to recover. I doubt he's even strong enough to take treatment. That timing is only, I think, going to be the only thing that anybody remembers about this book. It's a complicated subject. You put yourself in Biden's position in late 2022 when all of these discussions were being made. He probably felt he was a lot stronger. He probably felt he was strong enough. He probably felt, I've got through an administration already, and I've done a lot. Biden's administration as president did a lot. All of it's been undone. Everything is going to be undone. Once your country falls to a fascist regime, they can tear apart anything. And they will tear apart everything. So none of the stuff that he did, all of the gigantic achievements that he did in his one thin presidential administration, at basically the Emperor Nerva, all of the stuff that he did to help ordinary people, to help ordinary families, all of that, screaming overprivileged children on college campuses didn't care. They just liked the sound of Genocide Joe. And his fascist opponents didn't care either. They don't want to help the people. They want to use the government as a money machine. So all of that's going to be forgotten, and probably what will be remembered is the subject of this book, which is an alternate narrative that will spring up. That if he had stepped aside earlier, if he'd kept his declaration that he was a one-term president, and simply thrown all the weight of the incumbency behind Kamala Harris at the beginning, so that she could go through the Democratic National Convention and be vetted by voters and whatnot, that maybe that would have had a different outcome. That will be the alternate narrative that will spring up. The Trump machine, the fascist machine in this country, had been busily suppressing votes, restricting voting and voting access, voting machine access in key battleground states for a couple of years before that. So that is not a correct narrative, but nevertheless. I read this. It is nothing to write home about. It's not an interesting book at all. It just happens to be on an interesting subject. Then we have something. This is Ginny Urick. And this is her book, Homeschooling. You're doing it right just by doing it. And this is a book about homeschooling your kid, which I have to say, I think that this author has a large presence on social media. I'd never heard of her before I read this book. And I have to say, she makes a convincing case for a subject on which I have always been absolutely black and white sure in the opposite direction. That, of course, it's a bad idea to homeschool your kid. They will be drinking in your blind spots. They will be absorbing your stupid prejudices. They will be immediately limited in terms of sociability, because the one thing, I would argue the one and only good thing that public schooling does, is acclimate your kid to other people. They're going to have to learn that eventually. What used to be the old saying. They're going to have to learn about the real world eventually. They're going to have to learn about the necessity to make friends and compromise in friendships. They're going to have to learn about the necessity of dealing with bullies. They're going to have to learn about all of that anyway in the real world. They might as well learn about it at school, where they're malleable and best adapted to learning. I'm not 100% sure that that's true anymore. We used to say that. You're going to have to learn about this in the real world anyway, but how many people in the real world, how many adults live in the real world now? Not many, certainly. Not when you can have your own world on your phone. But I used to argue against this for all of those reasons. Now, there are plenty of reasons to argue for it. And this author makes those arguments. She makes mostly humanistic arguments. She doesn't make she doesn't stress what I consider to be hands down the strongest argument for homeschooling your kid, which is that if you send them to a school, public or private, you're sending them to a shooting range for a maniac. there is a gun-loving death cult in control of this country, a cult that whose advocates will say these things happen while a school shooting is happening, while the shooter is shooting kids. A governor of a state will say, well, we really can't do anything about this while it's happening. Your students go to a building, it's clearly identified, it's not reinforced, there is no security. Maniacs from 20 miles around know exactly where it is and what to do there. I've always said that parents of human children, not dogs, but parents of human children, are 10 times braver than I could ever be. I cannot imagine taking on that task. But that bravery has to be through the roof or insane for you to send that little kid to a school nowadays in America. To me, it's an insane decision. There's a school shooting almost every day in America. I would never do it, never in a million years. I've always said, human parents are far braver than I am. A lot of my human parents' friends have responded by saying, well, okay, I see what you're saying. It's a lot more complex. It lasts a lot longer. I have to send the kid out into the world, which you don't have to do with a dog, but I don't have to see them die. And you've gone through that dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times. So there's bravery on both sides. I don't know. I don't think it's true. I can't imagine it. But this book was eye-opening. This author is really convincing on a lot of points that I thought I'd settled my mind about. So if you homeschool your kids or are thinking about it and weighing the pros and cons, definitely read this book. Definitely do that. Well, I don't know if it'll convince you. I'm not sure that it 100% convinced me, but I loved it. For its passion, I loved it. Then we have a book by Mark Milner. This is a little bit contentious. I wish I saw more books on the subject. It's factually true. This is Second Front. It's a World War II book. The subtitle is Anglo-American Rivalry and the Hidden Story of the Normandy Campaign. But the book sprawls over more than that. It's not just the Normandy Campaign is the subject of the book, but it sprawls over the rivalry just in general, which is a fact that is often overlooked in accounts of the so-called Good War. It's often overlooked that the American president, Franklin Roosevelt, never did anything for free. In his personal life, with his marriage, or in his political life, with his allyship with Winston Churchill, he never did anything for free. The United States at this time never did anything for free. There was a rivalry and there was a deal to be struck. You have things we want, and we'll save those things for you, but will they be completely yours when they're done? Once we've saved them, will they be completely yours? But even in specific terms, on ground level terms, about the Normandy campaign, there was jockeying for position and prominence and who's going to call the shots. It was largely unspoken that, of course, the United States would call the shots in the invasion of Europe, because the United States is providing the planes and the tanks and the munitions and the fuel and the food and an increasingly enormous number of soldiers. So we will call the shots here. But I thought Milner did a wonderful job of this. I don't see enough books on the subject here. Then we have something. This is by Gabriel Zuchtriegel. It's an English-language translation of his book from a couple of years ago called The Buried City. He is the director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park. So he gets to stroll around the grounds that are not open to the tourists. He says that rather more often than I would like him to say in this book. There's a little bit of sotto voce taunting going on here. That look at the access that I have. If I've had a rough, long day at work, what I like to do sometimes is go past the checkpoints and wander around the city that you don't ever get to see. It's not entirely true. There are some people, myself included, who have seen the full extent, or at the time anyway, the full extent of excavation at Pompeii, the parts that aren't open to tourists. But mostly it's not. I don't think this author is meaning to brag. This is his story of Pompeii and the current state of excavation, of ongoing excavation. But it's more than that. The element that is sticking with me the longest, I just wrote a review of this for Open Letters Review. I'm supposed to be mentioning that in these roundup, these weekend videos, that I also review books for Open Letters Review. Feel free to go over and read them. Open Letters Review is free. I also write about books on my revived blog, Steve Reads, which is on Substack. That's $5 a month. So there's a lot of Steve pros out there. I'm supposed to mention. We also have other reviewers for Open Letters Review. There are other people who review books for Open Letters Review. Just this past week, David Murphy reviewed a World War II book, Scorched Earth. You're going to want to read a David Murphy review of a World War II book. I think we can all agree on that. But anyway, the element of this book that jumped out at me the most was the descriptions of the activity of archaeological research. I thought that was fascinating. That this is a guy who's right at the front of that. He writes in the book that most people writing about archaeological digs don't talk about that. I don't know how many such books he's read. I think they never shut up about it, but he's really good writing about it. Then we have a thin thing. This is Life and Art by Richard Russo. It's a collection of essays. Some of these, I always scoff when a book like this calls itself essays, because usually the things reprinted in it are not. They're deadline work, much like the stuff that I do. Usually on one book or one subject, and the author will then take pains to brush that up and church it up for the front parlor. So I often mock when they're called essays, but some of the pieces in here are actually essays. The type of thing that would live without commission, the type of thing the author would have been compelled to write anyway, just to work out his thoughts on the subject, which is going to seem really strange to those of you who don't write, especially those of you who don't write, for public consumption, but it is true. Not only have I heard it from a whole bunch of writers in my life, but it's actually true for me as well. You reach a point where you are going to work out what you think about a subject by writing about it. It seems really weird. It seems like you should work out what you think about it beforehand, but it ends up being true. Not on all subjects, but on some. And I got that feeling in this book. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. When I first saw it, I thought, this is going to be pure self-indulgence, and it wasn't. Then we have another thing that we saw on this channel, another thing that I have reviewed. This is Zachary Leader's book, Elmans Joyce. His book about Richard Elmans' big biography of James Joyce. I love this book. Leader is so good. He managed to keep me reading through 2 volumes on Saul Bellow, of all people. I love the book, though. I thought it was wonderful. All the anecdotes are well chosen. It's peppy. I might have disagreed with his choice to open the book with a long biographical sketch of Elman. I don't think many people are all that interested. I really don't. The narrative picks up steam the closer you get to his publication of James Joyce, which changed his life, changed the literary landscape, changed the biographical landscape, changed, as many people have argued, the state of Joyce scholarship, and was a hit. The book itself was a huge hit. So, the narrative picks up steam the closer you get to that. And then the story of the book and its subsequent adventures is captivating. So this is it's a weird thing. It's an ultra niche thing to recommend. It's a biography of James Joyce. So I don't know many people right now in my life who first of all, I know only 2 people who have actually read Elmans Joyce. I reread it for the occasion of this book. I found a copy at the Brattle and reread it and loved it. Just loved it. It's so much more entertaining than I remembered. This is my 3rd time reading it. I get something more out of it every time, which is a mark of a great biography. But I think I know only 2 people who've read it. I know some people who are mistaken enough to like the writings of James Joyce. They still haven't read Elmans Joyce. So a book about the biography, I don't know how many people I could recommend this to, but it is really good. Then we have a reprint. This is a big fat hardcover omnibus edition. I believe this may be coming to me in the mail. This is a second printing of Marvel's hardcover omnibus of The Silver Surfer. And I believe the dust jacket of the new reprint is going to have this cover. This is the John Buscema cover from The Silver Surfer's first issue back in the 60s. In the late 60s, early 70s. I forget the exact date of the appearance of Silver Surfer #1. Forever and ever, the Silver Surfer is a character who is going to be on everybody's lips this summer. It's a character in the new Fantastic Four movie. The character in the new Fantastic Four movie is a woman. The Silver Surfer in the comic books is a man whose world is threatened by the world-devouring space being known as Galactus. And the Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd, makes a plea to Galactus, spare my world and I will become your herald. I will search out worlds for you to kill. And Galactus agrees and transforms him into the Silver Surfer. You never go home again. You never see his beloved Shalabal again. Instead, he is consigned to be the Silver Surfer's herald. Stan Lee wrote that story. he wrote the original appearance of the Silver Surfer, and then we get the Silver. For years, Stan Lee said, "I love this character so much, I don't want anyone to write about it but me." So there's a reason why there wasn't a Silver Surfer #1 drawn by Jack Kirby in the 60s, in the mid-60s. That was the reason. Stan Lee said, "I don't want anyone else writing about this character but me." And Stan Lee was gradually retiring from writing regular superhero comics. Then it finally happened. Then Silver Surfer finally got an issue of his own. And we learned his origin story, where he offers himself to save his world. And that's horrifying. I don't know how many people actually see that, but that origin story is horrifying. That means Norrin Radd was a psychopath of the first order. If you will spare my loved ones, I will find living planets full of billions of people for you to kill instead. Nevertheless, that's the Silver Surfer's origin story. These issues, the issues reprinted in this hardcover volume, are John Buscema's artwork at its peak. It falls off as his run goes on, but I think this volume contains all 18 issues of the Silver Surfer. And the first 6-7 issues of the Silver Surfer are John Buscema at the height of his power. There are issues in that early run, I bought them on the newsstand, and I was just blown away by how great the artwork was. Actually, those issues, not just issue number 4, of course, those of you who are Silver Surfer fans are thinking of issue number 4, where the Silver Surfer fights Thor. But it's not just that. That was a great issue, but it's not just that. There are 2 issues after that are also just operatically brilliant. And those issues of the Silver Surfer, specifically number 5, not number 4, were one of the first times in my comic book reading history where I actually thought, I would like to have this in a book. I really would. My comic is not going to survive. I'm reading it too many times. It's going to fall apart. And I partly got that wish fulfilled in the Son of Origins. Stan Lee started doing these reprint volumes, and the second volume contained the first issue of the Silver Surfer with John Buscema artwork, but it wasn't everything. So I was very happy when these started to get reprinted, and now you get the big gigantic volume, which is a great way to look at these things. I think that might be why it's in the mail to me. Okay. All right, this next one's a reprint. I may have mentioned on this channel a few times that I have been hip deep. I've been sunk into the subject of the Holocaust. Cambridge University Press brought out, or is bringing out, a 4-volume history of the Holocaust. It's brilliant. I actually decided to wade my way through the whole thing. Rather than do a volume here and a volume there, I decided to read the whole thing, and it's amazing. It is an amazing work of scholarship and a lot of good writing. I say that hopelessly because I don't know who is going to read it. It's prohibitively expensive. It is I think, $500. So it is for libraries. It's for libraries and schools to buy. It obviously is not for the consumer. It will never be at your bookstore. But I decided just to read the whole thing of it, and that sunk me into reading more about the Holocaust. I got a bunch of books at the Brattle. And that prompted me to return to a Holocaust book that I read and praised years ago that may just be the most depressing book ever written. It's by Alexandra Zapruder, and it's called Salvage Pages, and it is about the life stories and the diary entries of the children in death camps. And I reread it. It will rip you apart. If you have any heart in you at all, it will rip you apart. The Holocaust is a story carved out of unimaginable sorrow and suffering, and this is the pinnacle of that. And I reread it because I guess I'm going to be reading about the Holocaust until the fates say otherwise, maybe all summer. But I reread Salvage Pages, and I actually do recommend it. It's just, you know what I'm talking about. It's an incredibly impossible book to recommend. If you're reading on the subject, I do recommend it. It's a book you shouldn't miss. But let's move to something happier. Okay, anything would be happier. This is by Brighton Blade. That, of course, is a pseudonym. I wish some of these algorithms that are writing these books would come up with slightly less detectable pseudonyms. This is called Brighton Blade, and it's something for the gays. You got to have something for the gays. And this is called Dang It, a love story. Those of you who are not in America might not know. Dang It is one of the many euphemisms for damn it that Americans grew up with in the 20th century and earlier, rather than say damn it and be condemned to hell by your vengeful God. So you say dang it or darn it or dab nabbit instead. And that's the title of this book. It's dumb as a title. As usual, the first chapter of the book supplies a couple of different great candidates for a title. I don't know that this book wasn't written by AI. I'm almost sure that it was. The cover was made by AI. It's possible that the whole package was just done by AI, which means if you are a company putting these things out, well, that's 100% profit. There's no money going to anyone for anything. You could just keep all the sales. I don't know if that's true. Certainly it read like it was written by an algorithm. But even so, I wish the algorithms would stay away from slang. But anyway, this is called Dang It, A Love Story by Brighton Blade. And it is about a gorgeous young boy who is working on his farm. He is intent on his life. He works hard. He cares for his loved ones and whatnot. When suddenly a mysterious and even more beautiful boy enters his life, seemingly out of nowhere, and has all sorts of interest in him. All sorts of interest. They spend time together, more and more time together, at work and also at play. And their relationship develops until the point where this mysterious stranger can make a revelation to our hero, which is that he's not only angelic to look at, he's actually an angel. Unlike in Arabian mythology, in Christian mythology, angels are not sexual beings. But nevertheless, of course, when I say angels are not sexual beings, I think immediately of the great Alan Richmond. I think of him in Dogma, where he's rather angry about the fact that he is not anatomically complete. But anyway, this was charming in a by the numbers way. I mean, I was enjoying it. I wasn't more than a third of the way through the book before I started actively thinking that a machine wrote this. I don't know that we're there yet, but we're not far off. We are not far off from, and not just this either. We're not far off from the Cambridge History of the Holocaust being written by an algorithm, by AI, where you feed that algorithm 30 histories of the Holocaust and the references, the bibliographies, and the footnotes, and you tell it, write me a history of the Holocaust. I don't know what the end product of that would be like if you used cutting-edge AI to do it. But anyway, I enjoyed this. It was light. It wasn't, it wasn't meant to be brilliant anyway, so I'm not holding the AI against it. Then we have something by William Ramsey. This is not a reread for me. This is not a brand new book, but believe it or not, this is the first time I'm getting to it. This is his book, The Smiley Face Killers. The subtitle, the huge subtitle, is Investigating Suspicious Water Deaths of College-Age Men in the U.S. and the World. This is a book about the theory that was put forward by two retired New York detectives that a whole slew of young men, personable, sociable young men, dying in mostly the upper Midwest. Quite a lot of Minnesota, quite a lot of Minnesota deaths here. That these are not what the authorities say. In almost all cases, the authorities said these young men were out on the town with their friends. They got drunk. They wandered away from their friends and fell into the nearest body of water and drowned. Case closed. These two detectives looked at all of these cases, pulled as much of the forensic information as they could, talked to forensic experts especially about water deaths, and said, no, this is obviously false. If you bear down on the specifics in a lot of these cases, you find the same pattern cropping up over and over again, where the friends say, no, he'd only had one drink or two drinks, that he wasn't nearly drunk enough to fall into a body of water, much less to drown in it. There's no chance. That simply cannot be. Or there's no water found in the lungs. Now, some proportion of people who drown do not have water in the lungs. Dry drowning is possible. But a statistically anomalous number of these young men were found with no water in their lungs. Also, lots of the forensic information about the bodies, when the bodies are found, a lot of them, far more of them than can be explained by just he fell in the water and drowned, far more of those bodies show no water damage, especially no water damage commensurate with the time they've been missing. Where the detectives started to think, it looks like these men were abducted, held for a long time, and then killed and dumped in the water. And if that's true, well, the MO looks so similar in a lot of these cases. How do we know it's not the same group of people? It's in different states, in different parts of the country, but maybe they're communicating with each other. They developed the theory that these smiley face killers are communicating with each other through the dark web. And even claim to have got close to a group on the dark web until, I guess, their presence was discovered and the group clamped up. I am fascinated by this subject. I think I have watched every YouTube video on the subject. I'm fascinated by it for a number of reasons, including meta reasons. The meta reasons are I'm curious to know why someone would want to believe this. Of course, it's understandable. It's tragedy. It would be, in a way, more satisfying if it were part of design, that if it were intended somehow, if there was something that could be avenged, something that could be made right, instead of boy after boy after boy getting drunk and falling into a river to his death. There's something very prosaic about that. It stands to reason that it is the best explanation, but there's something very unsatisfying about it. But also, this is classic pareidolia. This is classic what humans do, where they see a gigantic amount of data and they draw a pattern. They maybe even see a pattern where there isn't one. And then there's a part of me, a little part of me, the Sasquatch-sized part of me, that says, well, what if? I mean, the forensic evidence here is wrong in a lot of cases. It is wonky in a lot of cases. They're not making that up. Anyway, I read about this. I read a couple of books on smiley face killers. This was not all that good, but still provocative. Then we have something that I've shown you on this channel. It became an immediate reread. This is Sally Gallagher. I recently found a hardcover of her book, Icebound Summer. These are just nature profiles, nature writing about certain areas, in this case, the Arctic. It's beautifully illustrated and wonderfully written. She really cannot do wrong writing about nature. She really is wonderful writing about nature. And it had been years since I reread this, so I was happy to do it. I strongly recommend her, even though she's really not available, except used. I guess you can get everything used these days. Then this next one is by not Michael K. Vaughan, but David K. Vaughan. It's an older book, but I want to recommend it to you. I think we saw it on this channel, but I hadn't read it. And it's really good. It's Words to Measure a War. It's 9 profiles of poets, American poets during World War II. And I don't know what I was expecting going into this thing, but it's a serious work of writing and scholarship. It's very, very good. First of all, it's very, very good to read. But this author, this is a serious work, a serious study, a profile of these men. What they went through, what their experiences were like, how different their experiences were, and how it reflects in their poetry. This is a really good volume to have. Especially for you historical poetry fans out there who have 20 volumes on World War I poets, right? They corner the market on poetry and war. Not in this case. This was genuinely good. Well worth your time. Well worth it. I think it's indie published, so your library probably won't have this. But if it's indie published, it'll probably be cheap to buy, and the author will appreciate the sale. I recommend it. I strongly recommend it. It will also, for the poets involved, it will also change the way you read their work. Definitely, it will change the way you read their work. Then we have something. All right, this is finally something that I have not read yet. This is the new what the author is billing as the final book in an installment. The Arkady Renko novels that burst into the public awareness with Gorky Park. This is Martin Cruz Smith writing Hotel Ukraine, where the Ukraine war is the subject of this book, and Arkady Renko is caught up in it. Am I right in remembering that Martin Cruz Smith is either dying or dead? Maybe that's why this is the final Arkady Renko novel. I can't imagine. I can only imagine that his publisher and his literary estate must have been tempted to just have the series go on with a different writer, have the character go on with a different writer. But I don't actually know. This just came up on my radar, so I haven't read it yet, and I don't know the details behind it, the biographical details of why this is the final one. But I've loved this series. I love this character. I usually love this author, so I'll definitely read it. It seems a little bit daring. As long as we're on the subject of Ukraine, we might as well hit it on squarely. This is Danielle Levitt's book, Beyond the Second Spring, where she researches and then talks to ordinary Ukrainians and their experiences with the war. This was eye-opening to read, heartfelt. She's really good at bringing these people to three-dimensional life, so you really can't help but identify with them. Of course, identifying with them is really hard to do if you are an American in 2025, because the fascist ruler of this country is actually a close friend of the fascist ruler who attacked Ukraine and wants to sell Ukraine to that ruler. The United States is on the side of the bad guys in this war, a naked war of military aggression on the continent of Europe. So that makes this hard to read. When I'm reading about these ordinary people who had dreams, they had aspirations, they have family members, their houses are being blown apart, their friends and family are being killed. It was hard to read this knowing that the fascist dictator of the United States, if he could read, would read those stories and say, good. That's hard to do. It's hard. I don't have any impact on U.S. foreign affairs at all, of course, not the slightest even whisper of one. But nevertheless, it's hard to read a book like this and not feel that I have a dog in the race, and not a good dog. I mean, I love the reporting. I thought the reporting was fantastic in this, but it was still difficult to get through. But we can end on a happier note than that. This is an older book. I don't quite know why I was driven back to it. I'm not quite sure, but boy, was I happy that I did. It's more nature writing. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The author is Stephen Lynn Bales, and the book is Natural Histories. And it's just a stroll through the Tennessee Valley, which I've done. I will never be back to the Tennessee Valley, but I have strolled in the areas that the author is writing about many, many times. It's gorgeous. Just gorgeous. And it's full of wildlife. There are all sorts of gigantic, untapped wildlife tracks that you can walk through. That's what this author does. It's a lovely, wonderful, smart, sensitive, almost poetic book. I don't know. I think it might be a few years old, so let's surprise the author with a few sales. Because I'm telling you, you will really like this. Oh my God, if you live in the Tennessee Valley, you have got to read this book. It will calm your spirit. It will calm you. No matter where you live, it will calm you, but especially if you're a fan of natural history or if you live in Tennessee. We'll end on a strong note. This is a strong recommend. I don't quite know why it came to my attention, but I'm glad that it did. I love nature writing just in general, but especially when it's done with this kind of grace. I don't quite know why I'm getting so many comments from the peanut gallery. In every video that I've made today, my little dog has been ostentatiously yawning. Am I boring you, little girl? Is that what's going on? Am I boring you, Peanut? Huh? Am I boring my little girl? Maybe you're just tired. That's all. I don't know why she's yawning through every video. Probably you are too. So anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. That's a Friday Reads. Of course, I want to know what you're reading, what you're working on, what you're looking forward to, and also we've got only one more Friday in May. So how's your May going for reading? My own has been superb, just superb. There were 4 days where I did almost no reading, but I have made up for it. So is that true for you? Love to hear about it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up before it goes on any longer, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.